This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, September the 26th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's produced the Come Out With It edition. So if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial, get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So a bit sluggish here today, so let's ease into it. Pretty timely victory for your Toronto Blue Jays last night. Look, all season they were a team that put the ball in play. But we know, to have any success at this time of year and into the playoffs, you got to hit some home runs. So Varsho with the grand slam, Springer with the two-run dinger. They beat the Red Sox 6-1. Finish up the season, the regular season anyway, with the Tampa Bay Rays in Toronto to wrap it up. All right, just a couple of quick baseball notes. So Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, the catcher with the Seattle Mariners, 60 home runs on the year. So this is only the third time in Major League history that four different players have hit 50 home runs in the same season. We might be five. Eugenio Suarez, who plays for the Mariners as well, he's got 49, so maybe five will enter that chat. And then there's players with 60 home runs in a single season. Raleigh, Aaron Judge, and then the juicers, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and then also on the list, obviously, Roger Maris and Babe Ruth. So Raleigh in some pretty impressive company there. All right, I was going to rhyme off Ted Williams' career stats, but I'll do that another time. All right, for golf fans, probably one of the best sporting weekends of the calendar year, the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black in New York. The fans are going to be rowdy, no doubt about it. And the Ryder Cup, for those of you who watch it, you know what I think. It's one of the very best events in the sporting calendar. Forget just the golf calendar. And don't forget, tomorrow afternoon, 12:30, if you're so inclined, you get to tune in and cheer on Team Canada at the Women's Rugby World Cup in England, playing against the world number one, England. So they get to play at Twickenham, which is pretty much the international home of rugby. Getting to play maybe in front of some 80,000 fans. I can't wait to watch. Canada has looked absolutely brilliant. Okay, let's keep going. So we spoke with the lady who moderated the emergency disaster meeting out in Conception Bay North yesterday, Betty Mullally Moulton. She was on the program talking about the success of the meeting. One of the most important features is, of course, for the unincorporated communities to be well represented with the committee that liaises with the provincial government to figure out how this is going to be dealt with into the future, because their representation, of course, is not that strong when you can talk about the comparison to incorporated communities. So I'm really pleased to know that there's a representative from each: Kingston, Western Bay, Ocrapick Cove, Northern Bay. Key concerns, obviously: housing, safety and security, remediation, regrowth, and rebuilding. One of the big concerns here, or I guess there's several, is the confusion about financial support. Like, they really do need to know what's going on, and time is of the essence. Even some of the money for emergency rent assistance, that comes to an end. Then we talk about safety, arson, update from the RCMP about the progress of that particular investigation. But one key point is, and I hear from plenty of people here, and we've been talking about this on the program for years, I don't think now is the time to rattle the chains of whether or not unincorporated communities should incorporate. I don't think it's time for people, while they're just trying to catch their breath after losing so much, the devastation in the area, I don't think it's time that we start going on about regionalization, and maybe that's a conversation into the future, but I've been encouraged by many emails is to put that back out on the front burner. When the time feels right or more appropriate, we can start doing that again. But if you're someone who was at the meeting or has some questions and concerns, especially about the coming to an end of emergency relief support and the coming to some sort of head with what financial support looks like, because the thought about rebuilding isn't just about where, it's how. So anyone who's in the region wants to take it on, we're absolutely happy to do it. And on that front, how many stories have we heard from different communities, whether the water reservoir has dried up in full, or down in Torbay, or now Hughes Brook out on the west coast, extremely low water conditions. They've actually had to do daily shutoffs of the water in Hughes Brook. And of course, nothing but essentials you're supposed to be using the water for. So anyway, I don't know how we're going to deal with that into the future. Let's go. So we wake up this morning to find out that the workers at Canada Post, represented by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers on 55,000 strong, they are on strike nationwide. This is obviously a reaction to the federal government yesterday and recommendations to change the way Canada Post operates. Fact of the matter is, let's look at some annual losses. This is unsustainable into the future. In 2023, $748 million. In 2022, $548 million. This year, a forecast of $1.5 billion in losses. All right. So Canada Post was given a federal government loan last year just to keep their head above water, to stay afloat. This summer, Canada Post has to refinance other loans worth $500 million. And by 2026, it will need a $1 billion per year from the government just to meet its financial obligations. So this is a problem. Let's look at some of the trends in letter and package delivery over the years. In 2006, Canada Post delivered 5.5 billion letters. In 2023, it delivered only $2.2 billion, even though there was plenty more people living in the country and millions more addresses to be delivered to, so the trend is unmistakable. Parcel service, the trend is way down. In 2019, Canada Post delivered 62% of the packages in the country. In 2023, 29%. So they talk about some of the recommendations, and these are not new. These are recommendations that have been made in reports in the past, talking about just changing the way they do business, including the frequency with which people get their mail delivered, doing away with residential delivery, cutting some rural post offices. So they tried to make some explanations as to how and why they think this is the right play, but the reality is 3/4 of Canadians already get their mail from a community mailbox. It will take a number of years for these recommendations to be implemented, if indeed they go down that path. And a question being asked, given the fact that the government has leaned in on the ability to order people back to work, whether it be at the rails or the ports, and yes, Canada Post, which they did some months back, and whether or not that's also coming this time around. Remember, last time Canada Post said they would defy the order. Pardon me, Air Canada's flight attendants said they would defy the order. I wonder what the thoughts are in the minds of the leadership at CUPW on this particular potential. Your thoughts? Oh, plenty of Canadians rely on Canada Post. That's just the reality of life. Now, and it's one thing if you live, like, for instance, where I do. East end of town, the community mailbox is at the bottom of the street. It's really no big deal. It hasn't impacted me one iota. I don't even check it very often. I don't get much in the mail. But if you live in rural parts of the country, it might be a pretty lengthy drive to a community mailbox. So I think it's a bigger deal than some Canadians realize. All right, got a complete update on the status of the MSC Baltic 3, of course, ran aground in Cedar Cove back in February. So there's some 65 containers that remain on the vessel. Some of them are under deck and they're full of water. All will have to be taken off before they can float the Baltic 3 away. But now there's reports of a stench, fluctuating levels of hydrogen sulfide, basically because of some of the spoiled food in some of the cargo. There's no risk to the public, but they're looking at the fact that it's going to be there through the winter. They've used some ballast water to try to keep the vessel stable, but it's going to be there all winter, and the plans are sometime in the spring, whether to float it away or take it apart and removed coming up next year. So that was someone asking for the update. There you go. Had a call yesterday from a lady who was, I don't want to characterize her emotions, but she was frustrated and upset. And it's about the lack of quality of life given the aquaculture mass die-offs and shipping the offal past her home and the smell that keeps her from being able to do the just very fundamentals of go out and tend to the garden, to open up the window at night. I mean, we take some of these things for granted. Now, sometimes I get a smell from Robin Hood Bay, but not like what they're experiencing out there. Since her call, plenty of other people, I would imagine in the same community or thereabouts, reporting the exact same thing. What we need is a better understanding from the government about how the dead fish are being disposed. Are they all going through that repurposed plant? Are they some of it being buried under a pile of sawdust, as was the assertion by that lady yesterday? We need to know. And also, with the aquaculture industry fighting back against the potential for, now at this moment, it's just a proposed national marine conservation area, and the bus being driven by Parks Canada in the feasibility stage. You know, I know, whether you hear from Steve Crew or other leaders or other individuals, where aquaculture has come to town and saved the town, economically speaking. It does come with an environmental impact. Of course it does. Even for the companies, whether it be Keith Sullivan representing his members or Maui or Cook or whoever, what are they looking at regarding the losses they've experienced with the mass die-offs versus what it would cost to have a much more controlled environment on land? I don't know why our politicians are so loath to have this conversation. Yes, we can talk about the importance of those jobs, again, that have saved some of these communities. But at some point, if the trends and these die-offs continue and get worse into the future, Why are we afraid to have the conversation? I'm not saying that people in Harbour, Breton or anywhere else need to lose their job because they work there. Of course not. Because there'd still be jobs if it was on land. But we just need a better understanding of exactly what's going on there. What do you think? And still not a peep about the processing sector in the commercial fishery, like things like Royal Greenland trying to buy sea cumbers from a foreign vessel at 19 cents less than the panel negotiated price. That still hasn't been resolved. I haven't heard anything from the government. Okay, this is interesting. So we've heard the various parties talk about pledges and promises inside the world of healthcare, and God only knows that the healthcare system needs plenty of work. You know, maybe sometimes once you get into the system, dealing with nothing but high quality professionals for the vast majority of the time. But with all the promises that have been made, one thing that you think would have been part of this was consultations with NL Health Services about what's realistic and what's not. So apparently, after their general meeting yesterday, there was questions being posed to the chair, Bob Andrews, and the CEO, Pat Parfrey. And here's one of the comments. I can't say we've been consulted on any of them, but there are parts that we may have known about, but no, not really consulted in the way it's packaged and said, here's what we're going to do. That's Bob Andrews. There are some of them, I'm not going to comment on any party, but there are some of them you almost want to say, guys, come on, that really doesn't apply. You know, when talking about anything and big public policy and areas of concern, healthcare, education, criminal justice, or otherwise, the people that actually work in those fields, to not consult them simply means we're just making political smell tests. If it passes it politically and you think it's going to curry favor with the voter, that's good enough. When in fact, what we need is realistic understanding of the issues, direct consultations with the professionals working in whatever field or whatever area, and make sure that what we're promising or pledging is what's needed, number one, and manageable or realistic, number two. So anyway, that was interesting comments coming from NL Health Services on that. And on that front, still like to hear someone articulate exactly what was achieved by amalgamating 4 regional health authorities into NL Health Services. Not because I'm making up that need, because we were told there's identification of redundancies, improved efficiencies, consequently savings to be reinvested into the system. How has that worked? Same thing with the school district being blended into the Department of Education. We were told the same thing. Savings would be invested back into students. In what form? Or has that happened? Or was that even a thing? You want to talk about it? We can do it. All right. Throw it out there. Keep going. We hear a lot. I'm going to dig into some of the pledges being made by different parties, trying to keep it equitable and fair, because that's the only way we can make informed choices as voters. But I'm not hearing anything from any of them about debt. Look, I get it. It's the least sexy conversation in the world of politics. But the fact of the matter is, we are drowning in it. Absolutely drowning in debt. Some pragmatic approach to how we deal with debt has not been part of the conversation, other than a couple of callers. And I've been talking about the debt issue for years and years, but we really don't hear a whole lot about it from those who would like to be the leaders of the province. And this is just a broad stroke one. The whole waiting to see when the government of the day, and it's not just this one, successive governments, just waiting to see when they think is the best time for us to vote. The concept of fixed election date, I think, is something that we should absolutely abide by for a variety of reasons. There could be some intangibles into the future that give them some latitude to call an election, but a fixed election date is good for the electorate. It's good for democracy. It's good for people who are considering being candidates. The predictability of knowing exactly when you have to take a leave of absence from your job, or whatever the case may be, to organize your supporters and volunteers and donors. Fixed election dates should really be part of the conversation, not just waiting to see at the whim of the government about when they think it's best for them. Not good enough. And on that front, you can tell me what's important to you and a priority for you in this election. And we know we all share similar concerns, cost of living, what have you. But in addition to that, especially for the Liberals, we've heard from Mr. Wakeham and the Tories about pausing the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding, independent review, the possibility of a referendum, which I don't think is a great idea. And people are really crooked at me for saying that, but I don't think it's a very good idea. With the concerns that have been brought forward, we really need some direct answers. And I've been saying that, Jennifer Williams can come back on, and she's absolutely welcome to come back on, to speak directly to some of the concerns. But also, it's almost extremely unfortunate that this massive conversation comes in the throes of a political campaign, an election, because it makes it feel like the election is about this issue. If you're the Liberals, they've made it one of their top priorities. But the fact of the matter is, we're talking about something that has 50, 60 years of implication. So it'd be just, I think, very helpful for us, the taxpayers, for us, the individuals, is if that we just had direct reaction to specific concerns, whether it be about water rights or, authority on the Churchill River, adjustments for price according to inflation, the term itself, where the risks are, just the generalities of the concerns that have been brought forward. And your call is welcome on this front, but I think it would be, it's not like they care what I think or they don't need any advice from me, but if I was working on the Liberal campaign, I'd be saying, okay, let's collect the concerns that have been voiced by whoever, from Michael Wilson on down, and let's speak to them directly in layman's terms that we can all understand. Isn't that a better approach than, I'm going to pause it, independent review, this is great for Newfoundland, $7 billion. That's all highlight stuff. That's important, I think. But let's speak to the concerns. Let's address them directly so that we all know exactly what's going on, because confusion reigns supreme as far as I can tell out there. Anyway, how are we doing on the phone, Dave? All right, so yesterday there was some announcement regarding, Mr. Wakeham talking about putting people to work and taking advantage of our natural resources, all important stuff. John Hogan talking about seniors and new long-term care facility to be built. He was speaking in front of the Bay St. George Long-Term Care Centre. Then doubling the Aging Well at Home grant to $800 a year, up from $400. Caregiver benefit up to $800 from $400. So there's a lot to the seniors conversation. Also talk about creating travelling seniors navigator teams. Not to leave the NDP out, they've provided a costed platform, which the other two parties haven't really done, which is also, I think, pretty important. And we'll hear from the NDP today with a briefing about exactly what their platform looks like and what it costs. Liberals talk about travelling seniors navigator teams, social workers, healthcare professionals, people with experience working with seniors to meet them where they are, setting up temporary access points. Okay. We've also arrived at a perfect storm here. So if you look at the numbers that we got from Stats Canada about the aging demographic, over a quarter of the people living in the province are 65 years of age or older. Median age of people in the province, over 47 years. Then you look at, so that's one thing, preparing into the future. Then you look at the death rate compared to the birth rate. And for the younger generations, things like the woeful job numbers, the difficulty to get into your own home, the skyrocketing cost of rent. Compare and contrast that too. And it's not just an aging demographic conversation in this province, even though we are the oldest median age province in the country. It's right across the country, similar trends. So just think about it. Younger generations with the job numbers, younger generations with trying to get into your own home, the cost of rent, and then contrast that to the numbers of people who will be rightfully paid, they've paid in all their life, to things like CPP, and the number of Canadians that are going to be on old age security and guaranteed income supplement. We really are at a crossroads. The unfortunate reality there is, on this program, we've been talking about this exact issue for 15 years. And there's some policy that has been paying attention to it, but we need someone to articulate the long-term plan and try to square that circle for the older generation and for the younger generation and their concerns. There's some of it. I'm not pretending that no politician has ever spoken to it, but we talk about the mythical middle class and those types of things. But in this province, the age of the median age of the province, a quarter of the folks that listen to this program this morning are 65 years of age or older. And all the aforementioned issues for young folks. What do you think? All right, very quick. Oh, and at the Wakeham announcement yesterday, some concerns brought forward by a representative of the Marystown Shipyard Alliance looking for what is said to be documents that are being held privately that are talking about issues facing folks who worked at the facility and the chemicals they were exposed to. I think we're probably anticipating a call on that this morning. All right, two very quick ones. Good call yesterday from former Crown Prosecutor Mike Murray talking about trap houses, drug houses, and what can and should be done about it. We say, where are the cops? And that's a general plea when we talk about crime. But he described in great detail and very helpful, very informative, that the municipality, St. John's, that's governed by the St. John's Act, council has extraordinary powers and authority that it was probably not made aware of very many people living in this city. I knew some of it, but not to the extent that Mike Murray described. So when you're speaking with people running for council, you're speaking to the candidates for mayor, you can ask them about their authority and why they're not using it the way it's available to them. That's a huge problem. All right, I was going to get into some of the trade numbers, but we're kind of running out of time. We'll pepper the show with it as we go. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. My favorite, of course, when you join us live on the program to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Excellent question posed by a emailer that I didn't really think of, and I should have. You know, we talk about Canada Post, and they're not accepting any new parcels or mail. Anything that's in the system will be safely secured, they say. Things like social assistance checks will continue to be sent out to recipients. But what about any ballots that are in the churn? What about that? Because if the deadline was Wednesday and they wake up on strike today, are there any ballots sitting at Canada Post? That's a pretty important question. I have no earthly idea what the answer is, but we'll try to find out. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the Executive Director of Trades NL. That's Bob Fiander. Bob, you're on the air. Hello, Bob. Is that pot update? You're welcome, sir. Welcome back.
Okay, have you got me?
I got you now. Sorry about that.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, sir. So this morning, Patty, I just want to start off by saying Newfoundlanders and Labradorians want to work, live, and contribute in this province. And I want to talk about Beta Nord a little bit, and in comparison to the Johan Castberg FPSO and mode of construction. But before I get into it, just want to touch quickly. We at Trades NL sent out a number of letters to the political leaders in the province, and so far the only response back has come from Tony Wakeham and the PC party. And I'll just touch on one of the questions just briefly. So the question we posed was, will a government led by you commit that if Equinor wants to extract benefits of the people's resource, that significant levels of topsides construction occurs in Newfoundland and Labrador by Newfoundlanders and Labradorians? And Mr. Wakeham's response was this: a PC government under my leadership will work to make sure that the Beta Nord project proceeds and make sure that significant levels of construction occurs in Newfoundland and Labrador. Our people have the skills, the experience, and the passion for oil and gas projects. When our resources are used in natural resource projects, it should be Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who benefit from the jobs, contracts, and economic activity. It's time to make sure Newfoundlanders and Labradorians get the work they deserve, especially on the Beta Nord project. Well, finally, Patty, somebody is fighting for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So I want to jump into this, and the Johan Castberg.
Just before we move on, Bob, I just have a very quick question, although I think it's probably an important one, is for me to break this down to percentage of jobs, for instance, versus significant, because what constitutes significant? And this is not Mr. Wakeham's answer, about his answer, or any other politician's answer, is very specific details as opposed to significant, because your idea of significant is probably much higher than Mr. Wakeham's, Mr. Hogan's, Mr. Din's, or anybody else out there. So should we ask that next level question about a bit more detail into what constitutes significant?
Absolutely. I mean, significant is a word that needs to be measured. But in earlier discussions and in the media, I believe Tony Wakeham and the PC party said that they would push forward Trades NL's economic analysis and our benchmarks that we had set for major projects in this province. So we'd be looking for to have that discussion. And to be honest with you, Patty, right now Equinor is at 0. So I'm open to a really good discussion that puts us closer to 70%, to be quite honest with you.
Fair enough.
So just I guess to get into it a little bit, I want to talk about the Johan Castberg. It's a Norwegian-owned oil field. It just went into service this year, March 2025. Projected 30-year lifespan, reserve around 650 million barrels. And at peak, Johan Castberg, the FPSO, could produce 220,000 barrels of oil per day. A big ship, 313 meters and over 50 meters wide. So a big vessel, and I expect pretty comparable to the Beta Nord that we'd be interested in constructing here. So to talk about the mode of construction, when things are done over in Norway in Norwegian-owned oil fields, and Equinor was the leader on this FPSO, only the hull, living quarters, and turret were done outside of Norway. So the living quarters and the hull were done in Singapore. The hull we know that we can't do in Newfoundland and Labrador. We don't have the facility for it, but we can do the top sides. The turret's similar. I believe that Dubai may be the only place in the world that they could build such a thing. Those pieces all transported back to Norway for installation and commissioning. So everything else was done in Norway on topsides. Very important. All topsides were done. There was 4 shipyards in Norway that contributed to construction on the topsides. Verdell, Ergeson, Sandison, and then the main yard is at Stord. So everything ended up going back to Stord for installation. They done the modules in such a nature that you could use heavy lift equipment and float them to Stord for installation, commissioning, integration. That's what we're asking for here, Paddy. I don't think it's a stretch that we ask that the Beta Nord mode of development would be similar to the Norway mode of development. We're in Canada now. Equinor is here. We expect them to be a good development partner.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only difference, well, there's a bunch of differences between us and Norway in the oil and gas world. You know, some of it goes with sovereign equity in oil companies and sovereign equity and continued control in the North Sea. Because like here, once we enter into a benefits agreement, it's pretty much their oil because we've established royalties and all the benefits agreements, ins and outs, research and development money. In Norway, the government has a lot of control of the companies, financially speaking, in an equity position. Also, their infrastructure, their R&D development onshore, when you couple all those things together, intellectual property that they actually have with the government holds some that is held by the oil company. So there's a few pretty key differences, but your ultimate and summary point of why can't we mimic as best possible the amount of work to be done here akin to what's done in Norway? Fair enough.
Well, I think, Paddy, they're different right now, but they didn't start out much different than us. The Americans started that oil industry over there, and the Norwegians learned as they went, as we did, starting in Hibernia. But we're there now. We know how to construct FPSOs, and we know how to construct topsides, and we know how to construct GBS. So now we want the next piece of construction that comes to us, and we want our 35-year legacy to stay going. Who in their right mind would want to turn away from 225,000 jobs created in this province over the period of time that all these mega projects were in place, and $16 billion in wages? We need those jobs, Paddy. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff, to be quite honest with you. And the resources belong to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. Whether people like to hear that or not, it's the truth. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I don't think I'm disputing the need for jobs. I think I've been pretty consistent in saying that money in individuals' pockets is far more impactful on a positive side than money just simply in the government coffers. Yeah, I agree. I understand.
Everything gets a little bit easier when you're working, and you can take a lot of knocks when you're working, but you can't take very many knocks when you're not working. And who wants to be jumping on a plane? And we're thankful, once again, that we can go across this country and find some employment when things are down here. But when we have mega projects on the cusp, we need to be full center, everybody on deck, everybody working. We grow this economy, and we grow the population, and that's the way to do it, not handouts. We want to go to work.
Yeah, and that the tax credit being proposed for rotational workers is also pretty interesting if they have to travel and cost out of pocket to some extent. Bob, anything else while we have you this morning?
I'd just like to say, I guess, before we leave, we want the same consideration from our provincial and federal elected officials that the residents of Norway get. And seems like they put their people first. And the people of this province are not expendable. That's what I'll leave you with.
I appreciate your time, Bob. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Paddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bob Fiander is the Executive Director at Trades and Now. Let's get a break in. When we come back, we'll speak with you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. John, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
A couple of things, if I may. First of all, I'd like to talk about the Canada Post, or not talk about, just make a statement on how they're holding the whole country as a hostage, in my opinion, looking for this enormous raise. Everything's in turmoil, and they're losing $10 million a day.
Yep, $10 million a day. Big number.
How do you justify shutting down the country? And Canada Post is not used like they used to be. In the town that I live in, it's nearly 10 years ago, totally different. Now it's parcels coming to the Amazon stores and so on and so forth. So the federal government under Carney right now, who's going to bring the deficit up to $68 billion as opposed to $51 billion in a year. Totally different story. But something has to be done, and done quickly with Canada Post. I know there are good people out there working, trying to make a living. But if you're losing $10 million a day, your service is subpar, somebody's going to have to take the bull by the horns and fix this mess.
I actually think, well, there's been reports done about Canada Post and a way to modernize it and try to find some actual operational efficiencies. I think the recommendations from Ottawa yesterday, they make sense to me. Now, I don't work for the Canada Post, so far be it for me to say what's good or bad, but I mean, even if we stop home delivery and change the frequency of delivery and allow for some overtime to be on the weekends and all these types of, closing some rural post offices. Because remember, inside the some 4,000 rural post offices, we know for a fact that some of them were once deemed rural are now suburban. So we might have some over-serviced areas. Now, some people in rural Canada won't like to hear that, but it's true. So I thought the recommendations yesterday, that add up to savings of somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 million is a good start at least.
Well, these recommendations are like a lot of things that sit on a shelf and wait till a storm blows over and then they talk about it again next year. My point is, these recommendations, I'm surely to God, over the last 10 years with the mess Canada Post is in, this just didn't rear its head yesterday, these recommendations.
Nope.
Obviously, there's been things tried in the past. It's not working. Recommendations are one thing, actions are another. I think it's time for the government to step in, put Canada Post where it should be, modernize, change services. Recommendations, I guarantee you in 6 months' time, if I call you back, those recommendations will not be acted on. But today, Canada Post is affecting people on the ground, in the streets, in the homes, in the mailboxes, but is also affecting the country financially. Is there any other organization, I'm sure there might be, I'm not familiar with it all, of course, losing $10 million a day and not getting the attention that this deserves?
That's a fair question. Just on the bit about recommendations versus action, I agree with you 100%. I think there's a little bit of a different feel and flair to it now because for the first time in decades, Canada Post actually had to borrow money from the federal government. So the government holds a little bit of a different level and a weight of stick these days because if Canada Post can't modernize with the cooperation of their employees, then they'll just be insolvent. They'll just be bankrupt. Because if the government says, here's what you should do and you don't do it, what's the likelihood of loaning them another $1 billion? So I think that makes it feel a little bit different to me. And I could be a cockeyed optimist on this front. But this is a different feel because it had been when Canada Post was breaking even, making money. And I think it's fair that when the union says that management kind of misspent the monies that were coming in the form of profit, and that's probably very true. But when they were making money, then these conversations kind of didn't really matter a whole lot. But the trends are clear. Letter and parcel delivery way down. And there's no bucking that trend. And if they need to borrow more money into the future, the federal government simply can't continue to bail them out if they continue with the same operational standards.
Exactly. 10 years ago, it's not like it is today.
Nope.
So you're losing $10 million a day as opposed to making $5 million a day 20 years ago. So it can't sustain itself. The time for action is here now, but with the deficit looming of $68.1 billion, I do believe, go back to Trump, and I don't even like talking about this gentleman anymore, but
me neither.
When they were talking about annexing Canada, Trump did say, we're not going to go to war, but we're going to financially cripple them. And, I don't know if people underestimate this man, but our deficit went $10 billion more, so he's not stupid, and in my opinion, he's heading down that path. So, and then with that being said, we've got a $10 billion extra. There's layoffs coming, apparently, through the federal government, which will have its own effects. So I think we're in quite a mess here, and I don't know if the right person's at the helm or not, but it sounds like there's trouble looming in the next few months, especially when that budget comes down. There's going to be a lot of people affected by
the whole bit about economically punishing us, that's assured mutual destruction. Just look at the numbers in his own country. This nonsense is not working for anybody. And insofar as whether or not the right person is at the helm, I'll leave that up to the individual caller. But just one thought on that and trade and this unjustified trade war, tariff-based trade war we're in on. We've seen a document published online. It's one of the Order in Council documents about what's being tariffed. Because we were talking about this, I hate political slogans, right? Elbows up and reciprocal tariffs and counter tariffs. And if it's not CUSMA compliance, it's going to be tariffed. It looks like way more of those counter tariffs have been dropped. Which is funny when people say, let's tariff the hell out of things coming from the United States. Look, the base understanding of the tariff is if we do that, then what we import from the States, the tariff will be paid by Canadian importers, swallowed by them, and then me, and then you as the consumer. So this bit about counter tariffs, whether we put fees on potash and oil and hydro, that's a different conversation than putting a tariff on something that was built in the United States that Canadian consumers want to buy. So we're just begging for us to have to pay more for stuff? Like, I've never understood that argument, period. The whole tariff-based thing is economic nonsense. Well, I mean, beyond what was negotiated in a trade deal, which was called a great deal and signed by the president, then President Trump, and now President Trump doesn't like it and blew it up based on national security. Give me a break.
All valid points, Patty, but when you're living next door to a country that's so wealthy and powerful with 300 million people as opposed to a country with 30 million people and the economy failing, the odds are not in our favor. If I may, Patty,
sure.
I'd like to talk about Gull Island for one moment, if I may.
You may.
With Gull Island, I'm not sure if it's a good deal or not. I'm not privy to any. I'm just listening to what politicians are saying, basically, and people who are in the know. But if this project doesn't go ahead in the next year or two, who are we saving it for? I do quite a bit of traveling, and I've been on aircraft where there's transitional workers coming from all over the country. A lot of these gentlemen, like myself, are getting a bit gray and a bit older. So the workers that are in this province right now, if this project is delayed by 5 years, 4 years, who are we going to be saving the jobs for? A lot of people now in this province, as we know demographically, are of retirement age. Our kids are not having children like they did 30 years ago. So you have people home here looking for work in their 40s, 50s, and even in their 60s. So if they can't get to work and last 10 or 15 years of their working careers, make some good money so they can enjoy a retirement life, just wondering, what are we saving the jobs for? And we can't give everything away, but we eventually Quebec may own all the resources in Labrador when it comes to the Churchill River. I don't know, but the longer this project is delayed, the more people that are living in this province now will hurt, in my opinion.
It's a fair question. I suppose we also have to be cautious about just doing something for the sake of jobs. The concept of make work kind of has blown up in our face in the recent past. And I don't know what the future holds. I do not have a crystal ball. But you say if the project is put on hold for a year or 2 or 3, whatever the case may be. Look, if we don't arrive at the best deal we can with definitive agreements, that project's probably on hold for 17 years, for maybe more. I mean, we can't develop it on our own. Do we have a partner? If you can't flow the power through Quebec, who is a legitimate partner? I'm just asking questions. I don't pretend to be an expert here, but if you can't get the power through Quebec and you have to mimic the transmission through the long-range mountains and maritime links to carry 2,000 megawatts to then find a market for it, for us to borrow the money or have a partner like, just pick a company, Fortis, boy, oh boy, the appetite for that mega project in this province, I don't know about that one, man, I have to say.
No, and then good points. But, Quebec is paying for the project of most of it. But, Quebec's also getting the money from the federal government. So it's,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But, I have to run there now, Patty. I appreciate your knowledge and your chats all the time. Great program, and call again sometime.
I appreciate your time this morning. Have a nice weekend, John.
You too. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. David, tell me who's next right after this. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 7. Say good morning to the independent candidate running out in Mount Pearl, Southlands. That's Paul Lane. Paul, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
Best kind, you?
Oh, number one, sir. Paddy, I just wanted to, actually, before I got my subject, I just quickly wanted to say, once again, I was listening to Bob Fiander, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, and I support the position of Trades NL as it relates to getting some work out of the Bay du Nord project for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. He's right, it is our resource. And while, obviously having money coming into the provincial coffers is important in terms of royalties and so on, putting our people to work and the spin-off associated with all that is also very, very important. So I support him on that. I wanted to talk about this morning the whole concept, I guess, of campaign promises. And, I've been listening over since our last call, to all parties making all these promises. And, of course, it's more money for this, more money for that, tax cuts and so on. And listen, I've been in politics now 22 years, 14 provincially and 8 municipally. I understand the game. I understand how it works. And I understand that when you're out campaigning and so on, it's always been a case of tell everyone what they want to hear, make all these promises and so on, so that they will vote for you. I understand the strategy. But at the end of the day, though, it's, and this kind of ties into what we spoke about last time, I have to ask the question, and I would certainly encourage all residents of the province, when someone's coming to your door and they're making all these promises, the first question that you have to ask is, where is the money coming from to fulfill all these things? And I actually saw a story, it's on your VOCM website there now, with Dr. Parfrey and another senior official, I think, with the Health Authority, and they were talking about the fact that the gist of the story there on the VOCM is that there's these promises that have been made regarding health care, and basically they indicated that nobody, conferred with them or anyone that they knew of as to how these things would happen. And they even questioned if some of the things that were being promised were even possible. So, people have to take this stuff with a grain of salt when these promises are made. And as I said, we talked about this before, we have a net debt in this province of in excess of $20 billion. When you add in the unfunded liabilities, it's probably more like in excess of $30 billion. We borrowed $4 million this year. We've been running year-over-year deficits. I understand there are needs in this province, no doubt about it, and lots of concerns, and there will be some investments required. But at the end of the day, we all have to be cognizant of where we are to financially as a province. And it may not be the most popular thing for a politician to come on and say during election time, and that's why you're not hearing it generally from any of the party leaders or so on. But I think it's important to add this to the conversation because it is reality. Whether we want to face it or not, we can bury our heads in the sand, say everything is wonderful, everything is rosy, but at the end of the day, this is the reality in which we find ourselves, and somebody has to start taking it seriously.
Yeah, the absolute unfortunate reality is some of the things that we need to discuss are vote losers, but they're important issues. Like I've said almost every day this week and for quite a long time in the show, unless I can hear something from a leader or individual politician about how to think about and how to approach and a strategy to address the debt, then we're missing the most important issue in the province. We just are. Yeah. I mean, if it grows to the extent to which it is, and I'll remind people, all the while running a deficit of $626 million, which includes all of the big tobacco money up front, which that really means that the deficit would have been over $1 billion, is we're approaching $20 billion in net debt, and if we see another borrow of $4.1 billion before we know it, we'll go right back to most expensive line item in the budget, healthcare. Number 2, servicing the debt. So that means all the things that we need to be pay attention to and all the government spending that's required, it gets jeopardized because of debt level. So that's the least sexy thing. No one wants to know that we're going to have to tighten our belts on one thing or another. We can't increase spending on one thing or another because we have to address the debt, but they don't talk about it because people don't want to hear it.
That's a fact. That's a fact. But I think it's important, though, that it become part of the conversation, and that's why I keep bringing it up. And I'm certainly not suggesting now that anything about slashing and burning and so on.
Me neither.
But I think, but I certainly think we have to be more cognizant of how we spend the people's money. And we can point to, I can point to any number of situations where money has been wasted on various things, and I'm sure you can as well, and listeners can as well, on initiatives that were, a total waste of taxpayers' money and no thought for who was going to have to pay for this. So, again, I just want to say to people that, obviously as an independent, I'm not going to form the government, so I can't make these promises that I'm going to do anything, but in terms of budgetary items. There are certain things that I feel are very important in this province. Certainly in my community, it's community safety is a big one, access to health care, cost of living. These are all, everyone's saying the same things. We all understand that. And these are things I will certainly be advocating for improvements too. But at the same time, as we're doing this, we have to be cognizant of that crippling debt that we have, the impact that that's having on our ability to provide services for people. And so, it's fine to get out there and promise a chicken in every pot and everything else. But again, I say to people, when you're hearing all these promises, the first thing you got to ask is, where do you intend to get the money to this? Are we taking an advance? Maybe on the Liberals' point of view, they're taking an advance already on the money that would come from the Upper Churchill should an agreement be signed. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I would say, as we talked about last week, when it comes to the Upper Churchill, one of the priorities for that, I think you said yesterday, last week, and it was so rightly said, was one, we need to control electricity rates, and two, we need to pay down the crippling debt. I forget what the other one was, but it has to, basically has to go on debt and deficit reduction, a good part of that money. But it seems like they're spending that money before we even got it, and that's what we have a history of doing in this province. And that's what's put us in the tremendous financial mess that we're in. And
I will say, just in the air of fairness and reality, we're talking about successive governments over the last 20 years. This is not one party or another here. They've all contributed. And in some form, we can break it down, who's contributed the most and blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is, this has been a growing problem for decades. The end. It's the same thing with a forecasted need for addressing the aging demographic numbers we got from Stats Canada. Someone give me an actual detailed long-term strategy, whatever it is, aging in place, long-term care, whatever. How are we supposed to digest these big numbers? Same thing when we look at, the lack of primary care access for so many people in the province. This didn't happen overnight. It didn't. We've been talking about it for as long as I've been in this chair, but yet we simply have the 4-year cycle of recognizing, acknowledging issues, make pledges and promises to fix it, as opposed to just give me some strategy, which is why I like things like the health accord. Even though people don't like what's in it, an actual roadmap. Let's do more of that. And even if that's a conversation about the debt. I'm not suggesting we slash and burn and austerity can be the only way forward, but a pragmatic strategy where we can check the boxes as to whether or not we're on the track that was pledged or promised by one party or another. Same thing in education, 10-year roadmap. Let's just talk about some strategies here. Poverty reduction strategy. Let's see what we think it should look like in 5 years, see if we're there. If not, back to the drawing board. Things that we can measure, things that we can actually tangible. We can pick it up in our hand and go, here's what we thought we'd accomplish in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Did we do it? If not, why not? Just stuff like that. And not to make things simple because the world is complicated. Paul, I got to get to the news, but I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Paddy. Always a pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let us get to the news. When we come back, looking forward to speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go line number 2. Paul, you're on the air.
Morning, Paddy. How are you?
Not too bad, I suppose. You?
It's Friday, isn't it, boy?
Yeah.
Not too bad.
TGIF.
Paddy, I hear you, yeah. Paddy, I just want to make some comments here. Last Friday afternoon, you had Danny Breen on there. I think it was for about the end of your show there anyway. And I was really glad that you asked him about Uber. He's the only politician that's commented on it for the past year. I can't get any answers. I'm after trying Elvis Lovelace and Sarah Studley and all them. They're switching back and forth for digital services. I've talked to their assistants trying to get some information on what's on the go with it, and some concerns about it as well, but can't get nothing. But it was really interesting to me that when you asked Danny Breen about it, he kind of tried to blame it on the Board of Trade. Oh, they wanted it, the Downtown Development Corporation, they wanted it and all this. And we all know is the reason they brought him in, I do for sure anyway, was because of the Canada Games and the donation that Uber made to the Canada Games. He didn't bring none of that up. And it was really, how can I put it? I don't know the words for it, but anyway, it was really wild to me that all of a sudden after the Canada Games is gone and everything else, he agrees with the taxi drivers now when he didn't, he knew this before they came in here, that there was no vulnerable sector checks and they didn't need the special insurance and all this stuff. He knew all that before he started lobbying to bring this company in here. Now all of a sudden there's an election coming up and he's on the radio with you and saying, oh yes, I agree, I think they should have to do everything the taxi drivers do. But for the past year, they've been here. Well, they came here in April of 2024. Nobody agreed with us about those guys having to do the same thing that the taxi drivers have to do, right? And all of a sudden now there's an election. He's okay with it. He thinks that they should have to get it done. He got no say in it anymore. Like he lobbied it. He brought it in. He even got the Liberals to change the Highway Traffic Act to have competition against the local taxi drivers here and everything else. And we all know that the first ride-sharing company that was opened up here ended up in sexual assaults, and the company was shut down. That was under Sarah Studley. And even though he managed to squirm through all those applications and get a license for ride-sharing, they still didn't change the vulnerable sector checks and the background checks and everything else. They let it go because they were in such a big hurry to push it to get Uber in here. So since they've been here, they've been driving around. They park at the airport. They park everywhere. The cars are not marked. They're supposed to be a 3.5 inch. If you look at the regulations for applying for an application to become a rideshare company, they're supposed to be on the driver or passenger side of those vehicles, or front windshield and rear windshield, a 3.5 and a 3.5 inch sticker stating what company they're doing the ride sharing for. Now, you can probably say, like, how do I know they're Uber? Well, I get out at the airport and I go down and knock on the window and I ask them, are you Uber? Oh, yes, I'm Uber. Yeah, I'm Uber. Okay, so where's your stickers and where's your sign? They tell you where to go and put the window up, especially once he sees the taxi, right? Now, most times I leave the taxi at the other end and I'll stop and I'll go ask them. Another thing is to, like I said, with Danny agreeing with the taxi drivers now, is insulting. For a whole year, he knew the difference. Back in August of this year, New York Times put out a report from 2017 to 2019. There was 400,181 assaults and sexual assaults against Uber drivers. That was one every 8 minutes. I can find out all this information about this company having a bad rep. And Danny is talking about safety in the city. The Liberals are talking about safety in the city and all that. And they're still allowing these companies to come in here without the criminal, the background checks and everything else. Not only that, it's an American company. They're saying buy local, shop local, spend local. And I've said this on the radio before. 38 cents out of every dollar, when you hit that app for Uber, 38 cents out of every dollar automatically goes to the U.S. So why are we sending money out of here when they're talking about bringing jobs in LL Trades, Bob there? I agree with him 100%. Like, we're 12 or 1,400 taxi drivers, we're only small. But every job here counts, because right now I know there's about 200 or 250 drivers that have been put out of work from cars being taken off of taxi stands, all different stands. There's usually 3 drivers on a car. There's about 100 cars gone off the road between all the companies. That's like the food banks are suffering. The families are suffering. Everybody here is suffering. The Liberals got us that far in the hole right now. I don't know why anybody voted them back in. They had 8 years to fix it, and we're worse off now than we ever were.
And
Right.
I have to get to the next caller, but the vulnerable sector check, that is a legislative amendment that can be done in short order. There's no reason why that should not be in place. If we're talking about the safety of the passenger, that's a check that needs to be done, the end. I mean, I don't even know why it wasn't done to begin with, to be honest with you. It just doesn't make any sense. Paul, as usual, I appreciate your time. Have a great weekend. Stay in touch.
I will do that, and you take care, Paddy, and enjoy the rugby game.
Thanks, pal. I'm looking forward to it, gotta say. All right, there we go. See you, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the interdependent candidate running out in Harbour Bay. That's Clem Whittle. Clem, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. A little bit tired. I deal with a bit of insomnia every now and then, so my voice might be a little bit weak this morning. Yeah, Paddy, just, as you know, as I'm glad you said it, that I am running as an interdependent, and I must say I appreciated listening to Paul Lane there just a few minutes ago on that as well. Yeah, and as you know, Paddy, the main message that I'm, trying to put out is that, which is the slogan that I'm putting on the very few signs I'm putting out, and that is, that there is a better way. That lots of people know that, or they feel that there are things that are either wrong or they're not working the way as they could. The word dysfunctional is used a lot in our society now, and the word dysfunctional, simply means that it's not functioning either the way that it was intended to, or it's not functioning as well as it could, and as you know, I've been talking about the difference in the form of government that we have now, and lots of people again are talking about democratic reform, and I guess that's, in a way, that's the message I'm talking about, that we can change, our form of government that we have now to actually a much more democratic form of government, where someone like Paul Lane's voice, like he said, he's not going to be a form of government, but his voice is just as important as anybody else's voice. And if he were sitting around a table of 40 people who were elected, and there was no opposition parties, and everybody was pulling together, and if Paul Lane had, one of the best ideas around that table, and a vote was taken on it, that say, we're going to go with that, we're going to try that, whatever. But the situation and the way our system works, we all want to say, everybody's voice is important. And everybody's voice matters. But that's not true when you get into certain systems. It's those who have the most power, or considered to have the most power, in whatever way that is, who have, they either have the largest, not the loudest, but the largest voice, or the most, authority in the voice. And that's, that's a sad part of the way, our system works. Is working now, and if you want to see the extreme of how this, the United States system is not exactly like ours, but it is a partisan system, it's a party system, and so on. And if you want to see the extreme of how far this partisan type system goes, all you got to do is look at, what's happening right now, and the same thing, in my opinion, we came very close to that in Canada and so on. So. This is kind of, in a way, in other words, this is where this was heading, I guess, for a long time, and now we're seeing the results of, and now, in my opinion, and lots of people say it's time, to evolve out of, the kind of system, which if you look into, it's basically a fear-based system. And, Paddy, is one of my people who I've admired ever since I was 10 years old. As a matter of fact, he was assassinated when I was 10 years old, and that's Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King preached and practiced a way of nonviolence. And another thing that I've become very aware of for myself, most people, if I were to ask you, Paddy, what do you think is the best way, a violent way or a nonviolent way, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing you would probably say nonviolent.
Of course.
Yeah. And so today, Paddy, is something that's talking about non-violent communication. I don't know if you're familiar with hearing that much around, but, so if you look at even the form of our government, and you look at how it's practiced, and how people speak to each other, speak about each other, and so on, right? A lot of times you're seeing violent communication. And that kind of communication and that kind of thing that's filtering right through our community. If you don't believe leaders have an effect on the rest of the public, then again, I'm using an extreme example. I feel it's extreme by going to the States, and you look at a leader and what they might be saying, and then how people then follow it, and they feel that it's almost okay, and so the difference, and I know I'm talking about a major issue, and Paddy, in anything, I don't, whether it's your vehicle or a health problem or whatever, when you go to the hospital or whatever, you're trying to get to the core and trying to find out what the real issue is, what's really going on here. What's you have all these symptoms, but what's the real problem? And so we see all the symptoms, in our society now. We see where we're at, and we're in the most volatile, my opinion, we're in the most volatile position, even, as a world, today because of the circumstances, probably since the Second World War. Again, just my opinion. And Martin Luther King, I wrote down a little quote I heard yesterday. He said, the question, is not actually whether we're going to have a non-violent or a violent society. He said it's whether we're going to have non-violence or a non-existent society. That's when he could see that if we did not curtail or get a handle on our violent ways and our violent thinking and our violent behavior as human beings, he could see that we were headed in a really, really bad direction, and I got to tell you, Paddy, I really appreciate the fact of being able to call into your station, because I'm on my own out here, and I heard you say about the parties give money and they but I'm doing on my own, Paddy. I'm not taking any donations. I'm not taking any donations from anybody. What I'm doing because of how important I believe the message is, and I wouldn't want anybody to think that anyone else is influencing me, or whatever, right?
Understood.
Do you have a comment?
No, I do have to get going. I'm late for the break, but what I will say in summary is words matter. Whether it comes from the leaders, which of course is critically important, but words matter, period. And some people are far too reckless with how they talk about where they want to be or the goals they intend to achieve, politically speaking. Clem, I wish you good luck out there. Have a nice weekend. Thanks for your time.
Yes, all the best to you, Paddy, and your family.
Same to you. Bye-bye. All right, it's Clem Whittle, running interdependent candidate, Harbour Main. Let's take a break. When we come back, Bill's there to talk about municipal elections. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line 6. Bill, you're on the air.
Morning, Paddy.
Morning.
Before I jump into what I got to, I want to influence some of our either talented songwriters or wannabes to, there's a potential for a new song after the summer. I'd like to call it the Water Bomber Boys.
What's buddy who wrote the Light and Power Boys? What's his name? Bill Plowman or something?
I don't know.
Okay.
But the Water Bomber Boys done well the summer, don't you think?
Well, anything related to the fires would be pretty popular topic, or subject matter.
They worked hard. I was nowhere near it all summer, but I watched. So, but what I want to talk about, Paddy, is the municipal elections, and specifically my home. We've talked many times, my hometown, Long Harbour. And we've got a slate running this year. I'm not, and the powers that be have made sure that even if I was there, I couldn't run because, we call it vendettas. But we've got a slate, I think, and I stand to be corrected, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of a possible 7 running. And I'd like to endorse. There's a couple of the old, the former mayor who was a councillor in the last term. He's removed himself. His wife has come back in, and I don't even wish her bad, but I want to endorse Kayla. I don't think they're married. Kayla Power, I'm going to call her. She's a young lady running in this town of Long Harbour. There's Isidore Gammon and Jackie Gammon. I totally endorse. And as Long Harbour, Placentia Bay is the largest budget per capita in the country, has been for 15 years. 15 years I was involved, and drug over the coals. I got a file folder so thick it's not funny, and a possible lawsuit against the slander that's been dragged over my name for the years that I was there. And I had no intentions when I first got involved. I think the former mayor, you can interrupt anytime you like.
Well, I just wanted to know where we're going. Was it only a call to make an endorsement of one candidate?
Yeah, mostly the municipality of Long Harbour, yep.
Okay.
And so...
Anything else?
I'm nowhere near finished yet.
Okay, so what are we talking about then? Are we just going back to what has happened to you as a former councillor?
No, my issues are done. Could care less anymore.
Okay, so what are we talking about then, Bill?
There's municipal elections coming up. There's a slate of what I have 9. There might be more than 9, but I think it's 9, and I'm going to endorse that Kevin McDonald, who's currently the deputy mayor, be turfed. He's been nothing but not helpful to the town at all, just his own personal gain. Again, 15 years ago when I got involved, I knew then the municipality of Long Harbour, the highest budget per capita in the country. And it's been our town could be 500 people grosser now, with a whole bunch of different opinions, a whole bunch of different successes, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, the current mayor, Walter Keating, I am going to endorse him. I'm definitely going to endorse Walter. We've had our differences, et cetera, et cetera. And then we've got a candidate named Linda Murphy. This lady, her heart and soul is nothing but genuine. Then there's Jackie Gammon. Her motivations are pure. Then there's Isidore Gammon, who's been nothing but a stellar community person he's an old man now. Dora just called you an old man. For 60 years. There's a young lady named Kayla who's running. I endorse her. I don't even know her. We don't need to go through the entire ballot for endorsements or thumbs up or thumbs down. Would you like to make a summary point? Well, why can't I do this?
Are we almost there?
Yeah, well, I was going through the slate of candidates. Don't vote for Bill Brothers. Don't vote for Lydia Burke. Don't vote for Kevin McDonald. You don't have to vote for 7 people. Vote for those 5 I said. Bureaucrats at Legacy. I heard you talking to Paul Lane. I respect Paul Lane, by the way, that time he was talking about where does the money come from and as an independent runner. This town has, and our province, by the way, is so resource rich. And Patty, sometimes I really critique you over just kowtowing to Newfoundland is an island, and we stand back from the prosperity of the world.
Okay, hold on, Billy. You criticize me for what?
For sometimes just kowtowing to, this is just the way it is.
Give me an example. Kowtowing to who about what?
Okay, I will. Resource wealth. You caught me. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you're the one who said it.
I know. I own it.
Okay. Well, I'll give you some time to think about it. Next time we talk, you can call me out on something specific, and we can talk about it then.
Patty, it's time we got over it. For years and years and years, we were 50 years behind because of the isolation. But this old school money legacy on our island needs to go away.
Fair enough. And when you want to come back next time, we can dig into some of the specifics. I appreciate your time. Have a nice weekend, Bill. All right, let's get to the break. When we get back, Marlene Butler is running out in Bonavista in the municipal election. Wants to talk about campaign interference. I'm curious to know what that is. Patricia's daughter cannot find her department. Recreational scallop fishery. Trina Appleby is running for the mayor down in Torbay against Craig Scott. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Where should I go? Line number one, say good morning to Trina Appleby, running for the mayor's spot down in Torbay. Good morning, Trini. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your listeners this morning. I am indeed seeking the position of mayor in the town of Torbay, and thought it'd be nice to share with people the vision that I have for the town of Torbay. As you know, I've spoken with you many times about work that I've done since I've been elected over the last 8 years as deputy mayor and councillor. We've talked about work that I've done at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I've also served as the vice president of MNL. And we had conversations 10 years ago when I took over the soccer club, talking about how we're bringing in ladies soccer and making soccer available for youngsters in the community. So lots of great things that I've had the ability to be a part of. I think it's really important now to step forward, as a candidate for mayor. I've got a lot of experience. I've lobbied at a lot of provincial and federal tables. We've been successful in, things like doubling the what used to be the gas tax fund now, which is the Canadian Community Building Fund, and that's resulted in hundreds of thousands of dollars for infrastructure coming into our municipality over the last number of years. I have a vision for looking at how we move forward and, developing our town responsibly. And, there's lots of examples, Patty, where we've done things like that. And if I could just, for an example, we've done stormwater management work in a municipality, and we came back and there was a $10 million report that said it's going to cost you a lot of money to fix this. So one of the things that I was able to do at that time was to go back and ask, can we break that out into a 10-year engineered solution where we didn't have to raise taxes and we were still able to do that work. And that has been something that we have been able to do. So I have a little bit of a different way of looking at some of these things and how we approach them. And great respect for my colleagues, but I really think it might be time for a change.
Just a quick question, because one of the major concerns in Torbay, we can get into development and the pace of development and some of the hiccups that come with development and growth, but let's just talk water for a second. So what's the plan about developing Great Pond and the money associated with it and the possibility to, join into the regional water supply? Because water seems to be one of the big issues down at Torbay, whether it be with the level of water in the reservoir, whether it be about PFAS chemicals in some of those wells. So let's talk Great Pond and the possibility to join the regional water supply.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. That's a great question. Water is absolutely the primary issue here in the town of Torbay. And, the safety of people's homes. There are people in our community who do have pollution coming into their homes, unfortunately. I do believe that if the federal, government created that problem, then the federal government needs to stand up with 100% of the solution. Right now, we have $26 million, to put towards the Great Pond conversation. But if we develop the Great Pond piece right now, there's still $9 million that the taxpayers in the town has to come up with. That's 75% of the solution, not 100%. The other thing we need to think about when we're looking at the development of Great Pond is the infrastructure that we put in place and the operation and maintenance of that plant will be a cost borne to the taxpayers. And, right now we are addressing water quality when it comes to North Pond with bringing a plant in. That is needed for that. There's no question about it. I have been at the table the last 8 years. I was with our mayor and council when we went asking to be on the regional water supply. And we have been told no in the past that there isn't enough supply. But I think, going back and having that conversation again, no is not a word I understand. It's, okay, well, how do we pivot? What's the opportunity? And right now, we've got a prime minister who is looking for shovel-ready projects, places where we can create work and do work in our province, in our country, to offset what's happening, on the national stage. So I think what we can do right now is we can, have the conversation with our MP and say, can we take that $26 million that you've offered us for Great Pond? Can we go back and have a conversation with the regional water supply and say, can we come to the table? Can we have this conversation again? It's a different economic climate. And, at that point, if we go back and we talk about joining the regional water supply, instead of the taxpayers having to bear the costs downstream to run and operate two water, treatment plants in the community, that's the conversation then when we're talking about a region working together to offset the cost to run what we need. We've done great work on Great Pond. We've done analysis. We've done our due diligence. And we've looked at, what alternates are available. All that work has been fabulous and great. What I'm saying right now, though, is if we're having a conversation about the cost of living, if we're talking about not increasing taxes, can we pause, look at a different direction, and see, is there another way that we can do this? We really need to be very careful about making major decisions and making sure that we're looking downstream to see not only we're providing safe drinking water to the public, which we absolutely need to do, absolutely has to be a top priority, but we also have to look at what base do we have to support and afford that as we go forward. So I think that's a really great conversation. I'm here to stand shoulder to shoulder with residents. I always have. Every time I've been called, they'll tell you she stays with us until the problem gets solved. And I'm here to work with all the residents who are experiencing pollution. I am the member of council who asked in recent meetings if we could have another look at our groundwater study. It hasn't been updated since 2015. We need that information to make responsible development solutions. And I've also asked, until we've got better information, can we look at freezing development, which the town has control over, in areas that are impacted by PFAS. There are things that we can do other than just lobby the federal government for a solution. We can certainly work with our partners, have conversations, explore options, and find out what is the best path forward for the town of Torbay. And I'm 100% here for that.
I appreciate the time. I know I got us going with water, and that has a lot of consequences for development and growth, what have you. Is there one more topic you'd like to quickly broach before we run out of time, Trini?
Yeah, if I could, I just want to say a really big, strong thank you to the residents for putting their confidence in me. Patty, it's been really great to take my experience working in the oil and gas industry and different things that I've done over the years to bring here. And if I could just touch on wastewater, very similar to where I started with a conversation around stormwater. Again, we're looking at alternate solutions that are available to find cost-effective ways to move forward. I am here for working with our residents, listening to them, being in tune, and making sure that we are finding the best way forward for everybody in our community. And the last thing I just want to say is inclusion is really important to me. It's been brought up to me over the campaign that certain things, like the hard of hearing and deaf inclusion, making sure that, our community is open and accessible to everyone. They're critical points. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to continue to work in this space. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's put their name on the ballot. It's not something that you do lightly, but good luck to all candidates. And thank you for the time to speak to your listeners this morning, Patty. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate yours. Good luck, Trini.
All right. Have a great one.
You too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye. Trini Appleby, running for mayor down in Torbay. Patricia, you're next to talk about the struggles of finding an apartment. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Patricia, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
I have to say, you must have the patience of Job.
Sometimes.
Anyway, the reason for my call is I recently moved into a senior citizen apartment, and my daughter is not a senior citizen, and she can't move here. So she's having a lot of trouble finding an apartment. She's a nurse, and she's a single mom, and if anyone out there would want to rent to her, I would certainly be very appreciative of it.
Does she have any particular needs for the type of apartment she's looking for, whether it be mobility or size or the amount she can afford for rent, anything like that, so I can try to help?
No, she's just looking for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
And I've seen a lot of 2-bedroom apartments over the years, and some of them are very, very nice, some are not so nice. but she's just willing now to get some calls and get some motion so she can get settled into her apartment before Christmas. I'm trying to help her as much as I can, and there don't seem to be much out there, Paddy.
Vacancy in, and that's another good question. Is she looking for a place in St. John's or?
Yes,
okay.
St. John's.
Yeah, St. John's vacancy. Okay, well, I'll throw it out there to some of the people I know in the landlord business. I mean, vacancy in town is around 1%. It is extremely difficult to find an apartment, and then you add on top of that whether or not you can afford the rent. If you can't find an apartment, it's made it a very difficult landscape for people. There's no doubt about it. I do know some people who, in particular, have units that are accommodating for senior citizens. So I'll drop them a quick note. If they give me any thumbs up or a chance for your sister or your daughter, to view one, then I'll be sure myself or Dave will get back to you.
Would Dave be willing to take my phone number?
Absolutely.
No, her phone number, not mine.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll put you on hold, and you can share that number with Dave, no problem.
Oh, Patty, thank you. I really appreciate that.
It's my pleasure.
Do.
Good luck, and keep me in the loop.
I will, Patty. If I hear of anything or any calls, I'll certainly let you know.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll put you on hold. I'll put you on hold. You'll speak with Dave. Here we go. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 2. Rick, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Pat.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking my call, and I hope you're well.
Doing fine, thanks. How about you?
Good. Very good. Thank you so much. I'm calling about an insurance issue that I'm still having almost a year to date. Last fall, in the third week of October, I was to go to a beautiful trip down to Jamaica and was really looking forward to it. I was going with some friends and never been there, and I got sick 2 days before I was ready to leave. It was a horrible bout with a medical issue that I have, and luckily I had insurance, travel insurance. I phoned and went to my doctor to fill it out about 10 days later when everything settled down. And he said, leave it with me. I'll come back next week and you can pick it up. So, of course, I did. The following week, I went back. And when I got home to review what he had written and the documents that I gave him from my insurance company, he had it filled out for an entirely different medical condition that I have. And just without going into detail, I have IBS and I have lower back issues. I went to see him for IBS, and he filled out the documents for the insurance for lower back. So I went back to him, and I said, you filled out the wrong information. Can you fill out another one for me? And he said, no, I can't. I have no documentation of you saying anything about bad back, even though the document that I gave him, the reason why I couldn't go was I had IBS. So there's two conflicting issues here. I begged and pleaded with him, and he said no, he couldn't do it. He said because you were seeing a specialist, I was to try to track him down and him make fill out the document. Now, I hadn't seen him in almost 10 years. He diagnosed me, and he said, look, no need coming back. Whenever it flares up, this is what you should do. I tried for about 2 months to get a hold of him. Finally, I drove to his office, only to find out that this particular specialist was retired. And I had no way of getting his chart notes for my IBS. And to be quite honest, I don't even know if that would work because it was 10 years ago that I saw him, and the insurance company was looking for something very recent. So I sent the information off that my GP filled out again, and then I did 2 appeals and both times I was turned down. So it cost $3,500 to go, and I'm out $3,500 because my insurance, or the insurance, says, look, you put down IBS and your doctor filled out lower back issues. And I can understand that to a point, but like, you know, I'm here going like, well, what's the difference? You know, if it was my lower back or if it was my IBS, I couldn't go. And so I'm just here. I don't know where to turn. There's one more option. I guess I could make a complaint to the College of Physicians and Surgeons, but I'm running a high risk there because most likely my doctor will dismiss me if I put in a complaint. And I need him for my medical issues that I have, and God only knows how difficult it is to get another.
Rick, let me ask you a question. So this insurance you're talking about, this was specific travel insurance you purchased to cover your trip to Jamaica, or is this your own group insurance or something?
No, I purchased it. It cost me $400, and I didn't even read it. And I got refunded for my Air Canada flight. That wasn't an issue. They gave me, well, I was going down on points, and they just put the points back in my bank. And I said, well, this is great. You know, this is almost too good to be true. And sure it was. So I'm still 11 months later trying to figure out who I can call or chat with to get a document from a medical practitioner saying that I had irritable bowel syndrome. There's not many avenues to go to. I can't go back to my doctor again. It's useless. And the other issue is my doctor at the time was on ease back for whatever reason I won't go into. So he had to make certain, before he signed off on my documents, that another doctor had to agree with what he was signing off. It's a little complicated, and there's no need to go into it, but he was on ease back, and this other doctor signed off on my insurance. It wasn't my GP, so I contacted him, and his receptionist told me that all of the chart notes are up at the Black Marsh Medical Clinic where my GP is. So I'm at wit's end. I'm determined to continue to fight, probably more so out of stubbornness now.
I get that. Just a couple of things, Rick. So as opposed to first steps with the College of Physicians and Surgeons to lodge a formal complaint, the tactic I would take, and I mean you can do it as you see fit, but I would simply say to them, here's my situation. Do you have any ideas how I can get this addressed? Because it's not a formal complaint. It's actually looking for guidance from the regulator. So maybe, just maybe, they'll have something helpful as opposed to simply take your formal complaint and, as you say, maybe reprisal or repercussions for you. So that's the tactic I would take with them. Then I would call, or I'd contact the there's not really one specific ombudsman for this type of insurance. There's a variety of agencies that take care of insurance claims and or complaints. So also contact the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada.
Hang on a second. Now I've got to write that down. The financial, what was that?
Consumer Agency of Canada.
Consumer of Canada.
Yeah, that's the umbrella for all of the ombudsmans, whether it be in the banking sector or the insurance sector or things like that. So they'll put you onto exactly the right arena for you to file this complaint. So that's what I would do. I'd ask that question of the college, and then I'd contact the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, and that's where you can lodge a complaint about insurance coverage or the lack thereof.
You know, that's a great idea. There is one, maybe I've already done that. I contacted the OLHI, which is the Ombudsman for Life and Health Insurance.
That's right.
And so I guess they are under that umbrella. And I sent them a final appeal and I got a response saying I need a final position letter. And I haven't gotten that from the insurance yet, but I will make another call to the Financial Consumer of Canada, and I certainly do appreciate you taking the time for this, and enjoy your day.
The very same to you. Let me know how it works out, Rick.
I will indeed.
Thank you, sir. All the best. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Quickly, before we get to the news, on behalf of the folks working with the Mayorstown Shipyard Families Alliance, they'll be hosting a public meeting Monday, September 29th, 7 p.m. at the Mayorstown Hotel and Convention Centre. All Mayorstown Shipyard workers, families and residents are urged to attend this important meeting, so that's coming up Monday, the 29th of September, 7 p.m. at the Mayorstown Hotel and Convention Centre. Let's get to the news. When we come back, Marlene Butler's running out in Bonavista. Ivy Hanley, one of the candidates running for mayor here in the City of St. John's, to talk about the St. John's Act. That's the legislation that covers the City of St. John's. And Gerald wants to talk about the recreational scallop fishery, and then you. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to Marlene Butler, running out in Bonavista in the municipal election. Hi, Marlene. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, Patty. Thanks for taking my call, young man.
Happy to do it.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk about an important election issue in our town. I'm running as a candidate in the upcoming municipal election, and I'm really concerned, Patty, about the election interference by the town of Bonavista and how I feel that I'm being publicly discredited as a candidate.
What's happening?
What's happening? Well, there is the town back this week, actually, on the 22nd, on Monday, they posted an old prohibition on access to town office notice on their door. And my name was on that notice. This was dated April the 8th, 2024. They put it on a Monday, and that was 2 days before the advance poll. I really feel that people coming into the town office throughout the week before the advance polls and on advance poll day saw my name, and, that possibly meant that I wasn't going to get a vote because of it.
Marlene, I just want to make sure I know what's going on here. What exactly was the note on the door? What did it say?
It was prohibition to access to town office. And what that meant was my husband and myself were prohibited from coming into the town office indefinitely.
Because of what?
You want to know because back on March 11th, 2024, I went to the town council meeting. I invited some people in our community who have youth that have exceptionalities, because I volunteer for an organization that gives these people gainful employment. And the town had promised that group to transfer a parcel of land to them. And I went to that meeting to hear the decision of council why they would not transfer that land that they donated to the organization. And I asked a lot of hardline questions. I'm not sure if they appreciated my line of questioning. And after the meeting the next day, they called the RCMP about a disturbance. I have affidavits saying that there was no disturbance, Patty. We didn't get violent. We didn't swear. We didn't yell. We had a conversation. Like I say, there were some really tough questions that I want answered, and I didn't get answered. I was told the MOU was not legal, and it's hard to imagine that if a town donates something to you, and it's in an MOU, that it's not legal. So my question to them was it signed under false pretenses? Was this a malicious intent? And again, I didn't get any response to that. So here we are now in this, I'm not going to call it dispute, this old prohibition to access to town was posted this week. And again, advance polls happened on Wednesday. How many people came in and saw that? How many people left and told their friends about that? How is that going to impact me as a candidate in this election? And then when I asked municipal affairs, who do you turn to? This is the big question. Who do you turn to in this province about elections? So I called municipal affairs thinking that they would be the ones. And Lori Evoy told me that that I had to actually petition the elections. What does that mean? So I had to go in and try to figure out what that meant. And what that meant is I have to go to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador and ask them to have an injunction to have that removed from Town Hall. So to me, it doesn't feel very fair. I don't feel I'm getting a fair shake as a candidate.
Listen, fair enough, and I'd feel the same way, I'm pretty sure. So is there any other rationale for that kind of note to be popped on the door? Like, what are they actually trying to achieve? If there's something concerning you and your husband or whoever else, can't someone inside just enforce that as opposed to make some sort of public declaration?
Well, you would think so. And here's the thing, Patty. Why can't we sit down and agree to disagree? Why can't we talk our differences out? We're more than willing. We've been more than willing all along. But, you know, the town seems to be taking this stance that they're not going to, and they don't have to. And do we really want that from our leaders? We want our leaders to be approachable. We want to be able to sit down and talk to them. We want to know that they hear our concerns and they're going to address our concerns. So I feel like I'm part of the overall, the bigger picture in our town, right? But again, I don't want to be discriminated against or treated unfairly during a municipal election when I have a chance to maybe get in and help towards some of that change, because that's what we need in our town, change.
Okay, so this particular issue, I understand your concern. If you'd like to take a couple of minutes to talk about one area that we can focus in on about change, happy to have that conversation.
Well, actually, my issue today, Patty, was about the election interference, right? I mean, we do need change. I mean, probably a lot of our communities across the province. I was listening to your callers today, and some of them were from communities that were running for mayor and different candidates, and I agree with them that there is a lot of change needed in our province. We have a lot of historical attitudes and things that need to change in our province. We need to come of age. We need to embrace change. And whether it's here in Bonavista or anywhere else in the province. But like I say, my concern today was about the election interference and how that's going to impact me as a candidate.
I understand your concern.
I'm not trying to be selfish, Patty. It's frustrating when, you know, we're only out next Thursday, you know, 6 days from now, people are going to the polls to vote. And am I giving a fair shake? And I do want change. I want to be that voice for our people in our community. So.
Insofar as, you know, leaders listening and the ability for the public to engage, you know, and take this for how it's intended. As long as people, and this is not about you, as long as people do it in an appropriate fashion, because we all, you know, when you see it, you know, when you hear it, there's a right way and a wrong way to do these things. And if people are totally out of control, then I understand why politicians are hesitant to engage with them. But if it's just asking questions, then let's get on with it. We've really got a real insulated political world these days, and it shouldn't be that way. It's not supposed to be that way. Marlene, I understand your concern. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Patty.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
I mean, and I'm not familiar with Marlene Butler, nor am I familiar with her husband, nor am I really that familiar with the issue. But if people have access to, and look, just like I said, you know it when you see it, if people are completely over the top and some of the comments are unwarranted, some of the comments are inappropriate, some of the comments and approach taken by some are just outrageous, then of course most people, business leaders, radio hosts, politicians, hesitate to get involved in those interactions. If, on the other hand, you're simply asking a question, even if it makes a politician uncomfortable, too bad. It's kind of part of what you ran for. Let's take a break. When we come back, Ivy Hanley's in the queue, running against Danny Breen to be the Mayor of St. John's. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to Ivy Hanley, running for the Mayor's chair here in the city of St. John's. Good morning, Ivy. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm great today. Thanks. How about you?
Good. I think last time I called in, we were talking about developmental permits, but this time I wanted to have a chat about Mike Murray. He called in yesterday regarding the City of St. John's Act, and that's been blowing up online last night. I found it really interesting because, you know, Mike is very experienced with the St. John's Act with his work history, I believe.
Hey, he's a former Crown prosecutor, yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, it really shows when you read through Section 375 how much the St. John's Act can give our council tools to actually build a stronger a stronger team for the city of St. John's and protect the residents. And, going into that, I really wanted to look at how it could go further. Obviously, majority of people that are involved in the election and have looked into the candidates know I'm very strong when it comes to crime and addictions. And I understand 375 can be used in that benefit for things like trap houses. But it also can be used for other things. Like we have the beautiful Battery. It's one of the most photographed spots in Newfoundland for tourism, which brings in a lot to our economy. And we all know the story of the lighting issues down there, and it continues on. I went down and visited people down in the Battery, and I found out that for over a year we have commercial vehicles parked down there taking up spaces in an already squeezed parking area. We have dilapidated buildings that the city has done nothing to assist the residents down there, because it's just a constant showing from the city of St. John's that they're timid to use the act in the way it can be. I've gone through just myself. I'm not even a lawyer, but just going through the bylaws and finding commercial vehicle parking bylaws in number 1350, if someone wants to look it up, section 3A. That one right there can help them assist moving commercial vehicles that are parked down there taking up residential spots. And it goes along with the Battery. I looked up on the City of St. John's reason why they didn't do anything about the lighting issues. And they stated that in the Act, they don't want to use Section 375 because it hasn't been used in the modern era.
Just a quick question, Ivy. Are you talking about when that buddy was blasting that high-powered light into people's bedrooms and stuff?
So that gentleman has multiple buildings down there that are completely decrepit and unsafe now. And we have all the tourists walking through there, people who use that as a hiking trail, and the residents are down there, and we have multiple buildings owned by that same gentleman with those same lights that are completely fallen down and are a fire hazard. And it's been like that for over a year. And, the city of St. John's doesn't want to use Section 377, they stated on their website, because it's not part of the modern era. But it's still a legal document. Section 377, if you review it, it's still a legal document, and they can use council to make these changes on the lights and the buildings. And I just thought it was interesting that Mike Murray called in about 375, because it really, that one is for dilapidated buildings, dangerous buildings, burnt and et cetera. But it just goes to show, do we have the leadership that is going to use the St. John's Act to its full extent? Because if they haven't got it updated in 25 years.
Yeah, which is a problem. So I guess the obvious question from me to you would be, if you were successful, would you maximize all the clauses available in the Act? Whether it be the trap houses or dilapidated buildings downtown, Battery, or wherever else?
100%. I'm not going to. Obviously, we have to work with council, but maybe we just need leadership that's willing to work with council to show them. Drive down there and see what our residents are struggling with. Drive down La Marchant Road and walk up to the front of these trap houses and see what our residents in our city are scared to walk by to be able to walk to work. And maybe then council will be able to vote these bylaws into place, and we can build a stronger municipal enforcement team, because the St. John Act does give us the tools to do that. No, it doesn't give us, to charge someone for selling drugs.
No.
But we do have the ability to take them out of these buildings and remove them from neighborhoods it's affecting our residents.
Yeah, lots of authority as described by Mike Murray. And it is probably time to modernize and update the St. John's Act, which likely would not see the removal of these particular clauses of authority for the city. If it was me, once again, so, to say it hasn't been used in the modern era, what have you, that really feels like a bit of a cop-out. Now, I don't care who offers it, because if I had the druthers, I'd simply test drive it with pick one issue, whether it be a dilapidated wharf or a home down in the Battery, or a trap house, drug house somewhere in the city. Test drive it once and see what happens. If it works out that's to the benefit of the community, for instance, shutting down a house that's simply selling drugs or has the meth lab inside, and then law enforcement take over after the city's done its bit. In fact, Mike Murray also said that the city can contract the police to do this under the authority of the St. John's Act. So I'd like to see it test-driven. I really would, and I don't know why. Maybe there's an argument I haven't heard as to why it hasn't been done or people are unwilling to do it, but simply saying it hasn't been done in the modern era, so what? What does that have to do with anything?
Exactly. We need to use the Act and the bylaws to their full extent. And I love the fact that it's in the Act that we can protect our city employees by using an outside contractor. I mean, the city of St. John's has to look at its priorities. If they're able, they got no trouble charging seniors for feeding the birds, or a gentleman for a picket fence railing coming down, or businesses that get graffiti on and don't remove it within the specific time frame. You know, they're able to enforce those. What about the ones that are truly affecting the community? And I have full agreement with you on that, Patty. Test drive it once, see what happens, and continue forward one step at a time. But we need to start respecting our citizens.
Yeah, because it feels like, based on the actual wording of these clauses or sections, is that liability is covered, legal authority is granted. So test driving, it seems like a very low-risk exercise to me. And again, if there's someone who's a current member of council and or Danny Breen who thinks that I'm missing something or you're missing something, let's add to the conversation, because as per that chat yesterday with Mike Murray, it seemed pretty clear to me that if there was the wherewithal or the guts to do it, just do it. See what happens. You know, and the city has lawyers. I mean, just sit down in front of the lawyers and say, okay.
They have 6 to 8 of them on staff at all times.
Sure.
And they're also using outside lawyer firms. You know, I think that residents are ready for a change from the status quo. We need someone who's able to step in and to work with council to make changes that maybe the previous administration is too scared to do. You know, and we cannot continue making excuses using the St. John's Act to protect ourselves for another 4 years. And I ask all residents of St. John's, check out of the Fog. They just had myself and Danny Breen on last night, and they're re-airing the episodes over the whole entire weekend. And make sure you educate yourself on your vote for on October 2nd. Hopefully it stays that way. With the postal strike, we don't know.
Yeah, and on that broad subject, we're really trying to find out whether it be ballots that are in the mail or whether it be provincially and or municipally, exactly what's going on here. Like, for instance, there's one guy told me at the tale that his ballot, he put it in the mail by the deadline of Wednesday, and knowing that strike's on and not knowing when it's going to end, he called Elections NL. And he said, can you strike me from the mail-in list and just, shred my ballot when you get it? I want to vote. And I'm a rotation worker. I want to go to an advanced poll station and cast a vote. And they said, can't do it. Oh, no, that's not true. They said, okay. But when he went to the polling station, of course, without the communication between Elections NL and the specific polling station, he was marked in as has voted. So this strike can complicate these elections. There's no doubt about it. We're trying to get some guidance from election regulators to see where we are. Ivy, I appreciate your time. I wish you good luck on the campaign trail, and thanks for making time for the show.
Thank you very much, Patty. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Ivy Hanley, running for mayor in town. Let's take a break. Gerald, you're next to talk about the recreational scallop fishery. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 7. Gerald, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty.
Oh, no. Put Gerald on hold. Let's go to line number 1. Say good morning to Sue Hammond with the NL Prostate Cancer Support Group. It's Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, don't you know? Hi, Sue. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty.
Morning.
I had an interesting week during my month of awareness in the province. I was out earlier this week at a seniors information centre in Grandfather's Windsor. And I want to acknowledge that town because they put this off. They care about their seniors, and they're there for all sorts of support. We're prostate cancer. Our big thing is just our mandates are peer support, just basic information about prostate cancer and awareness. And they were came across, and we had people come to our booth, and some of them needed some support. We had a man who was our man of contact out there. He came and talked to them, and we're hoping to get a little chapter out there so that we can come out, make sure they have meetings and are able to support each other, and they get the information that they need. Often many of these men going through prostate cancer who've been diagnosed have many questions. So I really want to acknowledge, I know this is a municipal election this coming week, and despite that, quite apart from the candidates and everything else, they were putting questionnaires out there about not only prostate cancer, but about memory loss and people with Alzheimer's and support for the care workers in their families. And then there's other groups, Parkinson's, epilepsy. And I was so glad to see other support. It's a huge, huge benefit. But this was on the local level. I know St. John's have information for the seniors as well. They've had days. And another group I'd like to put out an acknowledgement for is the Community Sector Council in Newfoundland and Labrador, because they've been going around different small communities and encouraging all the support for different organizations to come along and make information available to these people in their communities, because each community is different. The needs of each community are different. Mm-hmm. Access, people to talk to, and that's pretty much, we're having a walk tomorrow down at the Mundy Pond Walking Trail, meeting down at the gravel parking lot opposite the old Mews. And if you want to come and join us, it's our fundraiser, but we're doing a walk around. If you just want to come and join the men, it's called Walk a Mile in His Shoes. It's been on the go since about the year 2000. And come and join us. I don't mind if you have a donation or you don't. You can give it to us. We don't collect it there. It's elsewhere, but come and join us, and come and join the men that are going through this most common men's cancer.
When is the walk, Sue?
The walk is Walk a Mile in His Shoes, 2 p.m. at the Mundy Pond Walking Trail, meeting down in the gravel parking lot opposite the old Muse Centre.
What day?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
Saturday.
I appreciate the time and the work that you do with this cancer support group. Anything else you want to offer this morning, Sue?
No, I just want to put out something to encourage not only prostate cancer support, but also other organizations that are mental health and the Alzheimer's Society and the Autism Society, all these people out there providing support to the families, to the people that have the different conditions.
Absolutely. I mean, if it wasn't for these not-for-profits and charity, we'd never be able to backfill it with government programs. So good on you, Sue, for spreading the love around. Thank you for your time today. Good luck with the walk.
Thank you so much, Patty.
You're most welcome. Take care. Bye-bye. Sue Hammond with the NL Prostate Cancer Support Group. Is that Gerald back on 7, David? Let's try this line. Gerald, you're on the air.
Thanks, Patty, for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
Patty, I was speaking to you, I think, 2 months ago with regards to the recreation scallop fishery.
Yeah.
And since the last time I was speaking to you, that I've been looking into, different departments of government to try to find out some reasoning for some of the guidelines that got put in to the regulations.
Is that things like you can't use a hydraulic device, but you can use a rake? What kind of stuff?
Right, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. So anyway, I've been contacting the Minister of Fisheries, federal and provincial, I've contacted my MHAs. I'm trying to contact my MP. But seems like they're trying to do the work. I had a call this morning because I was going to get on with you a little bit earlier, but the MP, Clifford Small, got back to me, and he said he's trying his best to talk to Minister Thompson, and he said he's going to be talking to her on Monday. So anyway, just regulation I'm talking about is the regulation that states that there's no mechanical or electrical device to be used scalloping, okay, for recreation scalloping. So, Patty, I don't know if you're familiar with a scallop rake.
I am.
Or with the fish rake, but a scallop rake that I got, and many more people got, weighs approximately about maybe 50, 60 pounds. All right? You throw that overboard, you tow it along, and then whatever it picks up, that scallop rake could be full. Rocks, debris, whatever. And they're expecting me to haul that rake up from the bottom with my arms. And there's no way on God's green earth is a person capable of doing that. So they got this regulation put in there. I asked them why it was in there. Nobody can't give me a reason. No mechanical or electrical device. Why not? I'm only allowed to collect 50 scallops for myself. 50 scallops for my wife if she's aboard with me. But me and my wife cannot haul up that rate to get our scallops. So to me, I think we are being they're taking away my rights for one thing, and I think we are being discriminated against. I'm outside of another boat. Commercial allowed to use a hydraulic device and whatever. I mean, they're making a living for themselves, yes. So if it's going to take them to haul up a rate with an hauler, why can't I haul it up? I'm not doing any difference.
It's a very fair question.
Any input on that?
Well, I think I brought it up because I kind of remember speaking with you about this in the past. I can't for the life of me understand why it's a problem to have a hydraulic device or mechanical device or electric device to haul the rake up. Like, I don't know what the difference would be because you're simply hauling the rake out of the water. Supposing I'm He-Man and can do it under my own strength and or a device does it for me. Like, I don't really know what the problem is, to be honest.
Well, Patty, I'm glad you said that because nobody don't seem. It's like kick me dead horse. You know, I'm not getting no answers. And then a person's going to be charged $1,000 if he gets caught using a hauler with no explanation of why I'm not allowed to use that hauler. I asked the fishery officer and he was right in front of me. I said, "Why can't I use my hauler to haul up this rake?" And he said, "I don't know."
Good answer.
I don't know. So if you break a regulation, he's going to give you a ticket for it, or a summons, whatever you get, for something that he don't know what he's giving it for. So I'm so frustrated with this. It's like, okay, just welcome me, sell my boat and sell everything I got, and go buy scallops. Whereas it's an enjoyment for me and my wife. Go out camping, go out on our boat, drag a few scallops, and that. But they're taking that away from me, Patty, with no explanation.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Clifford Small can get you one, because if it makes any sense, I'll be really, really surprised. Because I can't for the life of me, and I harken back to the last time we spoke, I just cannot dig into my poor old brain and figure out why that would be a problem. I mean, we're just talking about getting the rake out of the water. It doesn't mean you take any additional scallops. Plus, there's bag limits and daily limits. It's 50 scallops. You can't have any more than 100 in your possession. There's a licensing fee involved. So once that is done, how you get the rake out of the water, I just don't understand what the difference is. It's simply the rake coming up from the bottom up to the boat. That's it.
It's not destroying nothing on the bottom. And
no.
Without this device, Patty, if I can use that to haul my anchor up. And I mean, if I was out there on storm wind come and I got my boat anchor, I wouldn't be able to haul the anchor up without this device. I mean, there's safety issues too that you got to look at. So I was wondering, Patty, is there anything that you can do to challenge a fishery officer or somebody to come on online and explain to you why the hauler is a problem? Can you challenge somebody?
Absolutely.
I've been challenging people. They won't even phone me back.
Well, I'm happy to do it. If we have an opportunity to speak with Minister Thompson or anyone who's decision-making authority at DFO, I'm happy to ask because I'd love to hear an answer.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's frustrating for a lot of people who's got a disability, who's got who's a senior citizen that can't all like they did back in the day.
Yep.
And it's taking away their rights that they live for. They pay taxes all their life. You got to pay for a license to go scallop dragging.
Yep.
But on the other hand, you can't use it because you can't all rig up. I mean, it's just well for them to say, well, we're not going to sell no more scallop licenses. Take it out altogether. Because, I mean, you're paying for something that you can't use.
I completely understand your concern here, Gerald, and the first chance we get, because there's obviously so much to discuss with DFO, minister or otherwise, that I'll try to remember to put this on the list because I'd love to hear an answer.
Oh, man, I'm glad you said that because everybody's looking for an answer too. So, anyway, Patty, thanks for taking my call today.
My pleasure.
And like I said, I'll challenge any MP, Minister Thompson, Lisa Dempster, come online and tell me, give me an explanation of why I can't use it, and I'll well be satisfied.
Thank you, Gerald.
I'm not going to stall dragging, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Anyway, thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bud.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning and the week. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 2. Craig, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Good. Patty, my name is Kurt James. I was one of the demonstrators or organizers of the demonstration that took place in Berger yesterday. And I just want to call in and clarify a few issues here.
Okay, go ahead.
The demonstration took place. It wasn't against or for the marine conservation area or anything like that. It wasn't about the hard-working people that work on that plant to process the rotten salmon. Patty, it was about the people who have to endure this die-off day in, day out with dirty air. It's a horrid, horrid smell. People are locked in their basements. They don't have a quality of life to go outside and walk the streets like they normally do. And the coves and operators of the bed and breakfast and things down there, you can't put people in kayaks because it's so rigid, it's so thick. It is absolutely a marine disaster what's going on here at the South Coast. This is not about the aquaculture industry down the coast now. This is about the industries who produce the rotten fish to bring into our communities and for profit. That's what it was about.
Yeah, I mean, we had a caller yesterday just talk about the fact that, there's some of the simple pleasures in life. Tending to our garden, being able to crack the window while you sleep at night can't be done because of the overwhelming stench coming from the salmon that's being transported right past our door and the close proximity to where the die-off took place. So I get it. I haven't lived it, but when you hear people describe it, you could actually hear the sadness in her voice. It was overwhelming.
I've heard her yesterday on your show, and I was shaken to the core for her struggles in dealing with government officials and trying to get some resolve for this. Now, these are people who pay their taxes. They want to live a normal life. So I just don't get it, Patty. I really, really don't get it. Is there a better way of doing this? Absolutely, there is. Why it's not being done, why government is turning their blind eye to the environmental disaster that is unfolding under their own eyes, I just don't get it. So our demonstration was about, if you want to do it in a very sustainable way where we can live and go about our lives as normal. We have people with respiratory diseases or locking themselves in the basement who can't get out and, to even put on, a piece of clothing on the line. Yesterday was the only day in months where people were able to get out and put their clothes on the line because the industry went in hiding because they knew we were coming. And today, normal operations of polluting the waters has begun. I have over 250 views of the videos that I posted throughout, my interaction with this industry, and pictures don't lie. They just don't lie. And having deal with government agencies like the minister, at least their minister's office, the minister responsible for agriculture, and I've been weeks and weeks and weeks trying to get a response from her, but during the biggest mass die-off on the South Coast, she was unavailable for comment because she was at a wedding, and that this is her responsibility. I've dealt with DFO, I dealt with Coast Guard, environment, climate change, who are doing investigations now, who have a open file on this. But it's been so hard, and it's a bureaucratic nightmare for someone to bring a concern forward. It's just absolutely, and I just want to speak to the operator of the Burgeo Haven Bed and Breakfast, who is trying to make a living. He has invested so much into this. Why is he being pushed out where big industry can come in and pollute the waters? We had so many industries or companies kayaking companies pull out of Burgeo because of this. And to hear people on the radio, on the broadcast, like Mr. Couture, or is a biologist, who says, why would anybody want to travel down to Burgeo across a dirt road and to walk along feces along the beach and everything this is absolutely madness. This is a trained professional who's saying this, but he's being bought out by the industry, of course. We are not against Hermitage or all those communities along there. We want to see them strive, because whatever happens on the South Coast that benefits them, it benefits us. All we're saying right now is that stop the expansion. Stop it. All these hundreds of thousands of fish did not have to die. They are living, breathing creatures. They did not have to die, but because a Maui is so cheap that they let them die, and now we have to suffer the consequences of that.
Yeah.
Why do we have to do that?
It's a fair question, and we'll follow up with the association. We've long tried to get the individual companies on, but of course they refer us right back to the Aquaculture Industry Association. Craig, you've had the last word this morning. We're out of time, but I appreciate yours.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. You too. All right, good shows all week. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Bye-bye.